Hello, you're listening to E-Bible Fellowship's new open forum excerpts, and now we present the following excerpt.
Welcome to our open forum program. Please go ahead with your call.
Hi, Chris. Good evening. Could you go to Isaiah chapter 46, verse 10?
Isaiah 46:10. Well, I'll start in verse 9. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure.
I'm not sure if this is an accurate way to look at things, but in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve were dwelling with Satan, is it a good way to look at this, Chris, that God, knowing all things and has designed and declared all things, and Satan not knowing this, but there was a timeline that God was working in where Satan would be effective in deceiving Adam and Eve. So before Adam and Eve knew each other, Satan would be successful in tempting them, meaning God was working off of a timeline and Satan had a window of opportunity where eventually Adam and Eve would sin before their first children, Cain and Abel. So I'm trying to say that is it biblical to look at my life and everything in terms of a countdown, that there's a certain amount of time that God allows things, then he intervenes and acts and appoints. So when Satan was on the earth, everything had to fit perfectly with the timeline. So in terms of all things, it's all a countdown. Have you ever looked at it that way, Chris?
Well, I think the Bible does, present the idea that there's a definite timeline for history to unfold, for all to take place, for God to save his people. There's verses like this declaring the end from the beginning, and God tells us that he set the bounds. That's a interesting verse in Deuteronomy 32. He refers to the sons of Adam. In Deuteronomy 32, in verse 8, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. So this goes all the way back to Adam, to the creation of this world, and Adam's fall into sin. God separated the sons of Adam. You have Jacob and Esau, who could trace, like all of us, their lineage back to Adam. And God separates them. Jacob I love, Esau I hate. And he set the bounds of the people, and that would be the limitations. The word bounds is translated as borders in Psalm 74. Let's go over there, Psalm 74. Well, I'll back up so we can see the context has to do with Satan here in Psalm 74, verse 13. Thou didst divide the sea by thy strength. Thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces. And we have to keep in mind the book of Revelation likens Satan to having multiple heads and also multiple periods of rule. And he is also called the dragon, and Leviathan is a picture of Satan. But for instance, in Isaiah 27:1, the Lord ties Leviathan with the dragon when he says, in that day, Jehovah with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Clear references to the devil, to Satan. So here, Thou didst divide the sea by thy strength. Thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces. And that would be all the rules of Satan over the history of the world. And gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. Now that's interesting. And we read also in Ezekiel where God speaks of Pharaoh and calls him the dragon. And Pharaoh, once God judges him, will be like almost the same language, meat for those, I believe also it says in the wilderness. And then it goes on, thou didst cleave the fountain and the flood. Thou driest up mighty rivers. The day is thine, the night also is thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. Thou hast set the borders of the earth. The word borders is the same word as bounds from Deuteronomy 30, 32:8. Thou hast set all the bounds of the earth. Thou hast made summer and winter. And so it's even reference to summer and winter. If we follow that, we know that ties in with the time of the end. And so the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance. When he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. We can never know the complete number of, say, all the tribes, all the members of the tribes of Israel. But one number we can know is the number of the tribes themselves. And the Lord often makes reference to 12 tribes of Israel, but in actuality, there's 13 because he gave Joseph a double portion. And so the sons of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh, became two tribes. And so we would think that since the borders of the earth, the bounds of the earth are set according to the number of the children of Israel, the tribes of the children of Israel, there would be 12,000 years of history. But no, there's 13 tribes, so 13,000 years of history. And this is what God knew right from the start, right from the beginning. It's why in the book of Genesis, he can be so detailed concerning the age of Jacob. You know, when there's that famine in the days of Joseph that the Bible itself in Acts 7 calls great tribulation. And he tells us, he makes a point of having Pharaoh ask Jacob, how old art thou? And Jacob says, few and evil have the days of my life been, 130 years. 10 times 13, the number 13. And it so happens when the Lord finally opens the scripture in the time of the end, our time period, and reveals this biblical calendar of history, we find the Great Tribulation very much starts in the year 1988, the 13,000th year of verse history. So even before Jacob and telling Pharaoh he's 130, Cain rises up and kills Abel. And then Adam and Eve have another son that Eve says is given to them in place of Abel. And how old is Adam when this son Seth is born? 130. And we can tie that with the language of the children you will have after you have lost the other. And there's at least 2 or 3 places where God indicates the loss of the church as the loss of children and the gathering of the great multitude as a gathering of children. And that's in view 130. That number 130 pops up again and again. So it's knowing how everything will unfold, not only the timeline, but everything else. God knows everything about everything. That's the enormity of his mind. He knows Yes, the names of every human being there's ever been, but not only that, he knows everything about that human being outwardly and inwardly. He knows all the thoughts. He knows all their sins and everything else. He knows every step we've taken, every turn in the road, and the changes of the world. God has known, well, really, ever since he's been God in eternity past, but certainly from the creation of this world, God knew the desperate wickedness that is happening presently on earth. He knew it again from the beginning. And knowing all these things is how he can write with such incredible accuracy and detail when he hides in the biblical accounts. And the Bible was completed about 2,000 years ago, and yet the Lord writes with perfect accuracy in the Old Testament, in the days of Enoch, who prophesied of Christ coming with 10,000 saints, or at any point, and even in the New Testament with Romans, the Lord moved Paul to write Romans 1, and I will give them up, and the emphasis upon homosexuality in that account.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. That way you don't miss any upcoming videos.